What happens when a billionaire father loses himself in grief, until a humble nanny and two silent little boys remind him what love really means? This is the story of how one broken mansion became a home again, and how second chances can heal even the deepest wounds. Samuel Whitaker was a billionaire widower. Since his wife's death, his mansion had turned cold, more like a museum than a home. His 5-year-old twins, Jack and Theo, stopped laughing, stopped drawing, even stopped waiting at the window for their father. Caregivers came and went, unable to stay. People said the boys were difficult, but the truth was simple. They weren't misbehaving. They were grieving. Samuel buried himself in work, contracts, meetings, late nights. He told himself he was protecting their future, but money couldn't notice the toy cars Jack lined up in rows, or the way Theo stared down the driveway, waiting for footsteps that never came. Then one day, Grace arrived. She wasn't like the other nannies. She came quietly with a small suitcase and a calm presence. Instead of barking orders, she simply sat on the floor, opened a book, and began reading. The boys ignored her at first, but she didn't push. She just stayed. Slowly, Jack leaned closer. Theo peeked over her shoulder. And for the first time in years, someone wasn't running away from their silence. Grace gave the boys what no one else had: consistency. She smiled each morning, tidied their toys each night, and when they spilled juice on the rug, she didn't scold. She pressed a towel into their hands and said, "We'll clean it together." That simple kindness broke through their walls. Soon, shy laughter began to echo through the mansion's halls. Samuel barely noticed. Buried in his office, he dismissed Grace as another professional who wouldn't last. But one night, passing the playroom, he heard something he hadn't in years: the boys giggling with Grace over a book. He froze. That sound pierced him like sunlight through clouds. For the first time, he lay awake not thinking about business, but about his children. The real breakthrough came one afternoon when the twins, with markers in hand, drew on Grace's round belly. She was expecting a child. At first, they scribbled silly faces and animals. Then Jack carefully scrawled a single word: brother. Grace's eyes filled with tears. At that exact moment, Samuel walked in. He saw his sons kneeling proudly beside Grace, their hands pressed to her belly. "Look, Daddy," Theo said, pointing to the word. Brother. Samuel's chest cracked open. Tears poured down his face, something his boys had never seen before. They ran to him, tugging his hands, begging him to feel the baby's kick. And when he did, he gasped. The walls he had built since his wife's death finally broke. From that day, everything changed. Samuel started showing up. He joined breakfasts, even when eggshells ended up in the bowl. He sat on the rug for story time, awkward at first, but stayed as Theo rested his head on his arm. He pinned Jack's drawings to the fridge instead of ignoring them. The staff noticed. The mansion slowly filled with warmth again. But the biggest change was Samuel himself. He laughed with his sons, told them bedtime stories, even wiped away his own tears when guilt returned. Grace had lit the spark, but Samuel was learning to tend the flame. The defining moment came at the hospital during Grace's ultrasound. Jack and Theo clutched Samuel's hands as the sound of a heartbeat filled the room. Wide-eyed, they whispered in unison, "That's our brother." Samuel dropped to his knees, overcome. His sons, once silent and withdrawn, were now claiming an unborn child as family. "Yes," Samuel whispered, tears streaming, "he really is." Weeks later, Grace gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The mansion that had once echoed with silence now rang with laughter, toy cars skittering across the marble, and crayon drawings taped proudly to the walls. Samuel often stayed up at night, not from grief anymore, but to check on the baby or watch his older boys sleep. The man who once built walls around his heart finally opened every door. He no longer measured life in contracts or bank accounts, but in bedtime stories, spilled milk, and small arms hugging his neck. Samuel learned that love doesn't wait for perfection. It grows in messy breakfasts, late-night cries, and the simple act of being present. What about you? Have you ever seen a broken place turn into a home filled with love? Share your story in the comments. And if this journey touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more powerful stories of hope, healing, and second chances.